she's a chameleon. She, changes based on her environment. I think this is the real Meghan Markle.
Welcome to Royal Exclusive Rewind, where we delve back into the files and relive some of the highlights and lowlights of royal family history. Remember to subscribe to us here on the Royal Exclusive YouTube channel so you never miss an episode. Today I'm joined by royal experts Kinsey, Schofield and Dickie, Arbiter to discuss the bombshell Harry and Meghan Oprah interview, an interview watched by 17.1 million people worldwide. In 2020, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex fled Frogmore Cottage for a private, quiet life in glamorous Santa Barbara, far from the cold British weather and royal responsibilities. A year later, instead of maintaining a quiet civilian lifestyle, Harry and Meghan sat down with one of America's biggest broadcasters to share stories of alleged racism, royal family feuds, and mental health struggles. Kinsey, I want you to take us back to just prior to this bombshell interview. Were Oprah Winfrey and Harry and Meghan friends?
Well, Harry and Meghan tell us they were, that she actually visited them at Kensington Palace, took a look at his little cottage at Kensington Palace and told them both that it wasn't big enough, that they deserved more. That's what they say in the Netflix series. Andrew Morton reports in his book, Meghan, that Oprah Winfrey and Meghan started talking about doing a sit-down interview 6 months before the wedding. I think that this was an opportunity for Oprah Winfrey, who, as you know, courted Princess Diana for years and desperately wanted to secure an interview with Diana. She sat down with Fergie, the former Duchess of York, multiple times. So, yeah, I think that Oprah saw this as the perfect opportunity to get a win.
But they weren't friends.
It was a Hollywood friendship.
A Hollywood friendship, a different type.
It was something developed. Meghan was going out with Harry. Meghan was about to get married, to engaged to Harry. And Oprah saw this as an opportunity of inveigling her way in to get a royal interview. Barbara Walters tried it several times with Diana, and it failed. And as you rightly say, Oprah tried it as well. I don't think they were friends before all this came about, but certainly it probably developed after they got engaged.
What was happening here then in London? Because, as I say, we pointed out Harry and Meghan were over there. So Oprah was circling. Mm-hmm. We just had COVID. Had some lockdowns. Prince Philip wasn't very well. What was happening here? What was the climate like here in the UK?
Well, Prince Philip had come out of hospital, and to put it in a nutshell, he was dying. Late Queen was having mobility issues. The sort of top echelon of the royal family was not in good shape. And yet Harry and Meghan sat down, even while Prince Philip was still in hospital, meeting his end. They sat down to do this interview, and it was broadcast a few weeks before he actually passed away. Bad timing, with no concern at all for the family, a disappointment to his grandmother. She thought more of him than running to the media and doing a kiss and tell. And quite frankly, what was in that Oprah interview basically was a lie.
Well, let's start talking about some of the things that were in the Oprah interview. Obviously, the headline, the big one that really left everyone's, jaws open, aghast, was this idea that two or one mystery members of the royal family had, once or twice, made comments about the colour of the skin of Harry and Meghan's future children. What did you think when you heard that? Talk us through what was actually said.
What was actually said is Meghan made the claim that her child did not receive the title that she felt that he deserved or had, was entitled to because of his skin color, and that there were racist comments made by working members of the British royal family, which Oprah really doesn't challenge. She just acts, she gasps and says, "What?" Meghan actually says later in the Netflix series that she was disappointed that the takeaway was not her mental health. She acts shocked that the racism allegation is what rocks the media world. It was a really difficult period to navigate as a royal commentator in the States because we were dealing with the George Floyd riots. Culturally, it was a mess when it came to race. So if you did push or challenge this story, you were accused of racism. So you just had to go with it and say, here is what she said, but I can't have an opinion whatsoever on whether or not this is factually correct.
Well, Harry also said later himself that we didn't call the royal family racist. The media have called the media said that we called them racist. Sorry.
Well, my rewind on that is firstly on the racist issue. They didn't get the script right because Meghan claimed it was said while she was pregnant. Harry came into the interview because she started the interview without Harry. He came in a few minutes later and he said it was before they got married. So when was it? Before they got married? While she was pregnant or not at all? As far as titles are concerned, George V, Harry's great-great-grandfather, made very clear in the letters patent in 1917, in order to cut down on the number of members of the royal family, because there were a lot of them around about that time, that only grandchildren of the sovereign would have a title, which meant that Archie and Lily would not have titles until such time the Queen passed and Charles became king, because then they would be grandchildren of the sovereign. So that was rubbish.
But also think about the time difference. In the States, this flew like fire without the fact-checking that you just mentioned, because in the States it was just repeat the racism allegations, and there weren't the resources.
They don't fact check there, really, do they?
No, and without the resources to say historically this is inaccurate because. So by the time it gets over here, it's the fire is set, and there's no taking out the fire. You can say, no, that's not true factually, because here is the historical, here's the historical importance to this, but you can't put the fire out now.
No, there were other things in the interview that we can touch on where there was a little bit of debate as to whether it was accurate or true or bending the truth slightly. She's talking about, I think she said that she hadn't done any research on the royal family, and also any research on the royal family, and didn't know who Prince Harry was when they met. Which, come on. And then also they're talking about there was the story that Meghan made Kate cry, and then Meghan was actually saying, no, actually, Kate made me cry. I mean, these led to huge headlines, and everyone's still debating what is the accurate representation of that incident between Kate and Meghan. But these were still more bombshell claims that people are looking at and thinking, which side of the story is right?
Right. Well, I think that I didn't Google my boyfriend is ridiculous. I Google people that look at me twice. Like I didn't Google my
Twice?
Don't worry, Dickie, I've Googled you. When it comes to Meghan not having any sort of history with the British royal family, I love that picture of her as a teenager sitting outside of Buckingham Palace posing for a photo. She has girlfriends that say after the death of Princess Diana, she was inspired to collect toys and clothing for children, in honor of Princess Diana's legacy. There are reports from friends that there was a Diana, Her True Story book sitting on her bookshelf as a teenager growing up. So I don't believe that. I believe her friends that she had an interest in the British royal family. Who made who cry? Catherine was pregnant throughout this process and then gave birth to baby Louis. If Catherine's, a little sensitive towards things, I completely side with Catherine. This is Meghan's second wedding. There was no need to be a bridezilla.
Maybe they both cried.
Yeah, maybe they both cried. Who cares? Who cares?
And besides, Meghan is an actress. Well, she was anyway.
What did she say? Left eye go in that one interview, and she can make herself cry out of one eye.
She's an actor. And, actors act. Like that Oprah interview, the whole thing was an act.
This is so petty. This whole interview is so petty.
There is one part of the Oprah interview which I do look and I think, well, I do actually feel a lot of sympathy for Meghan. This is when she started talking about her mental health. I mean, she has spoken up before when she was interviewed in South Africa with Tom Bradby, and she said, not many people have asked if I'm okay. She does get mocked for this, but it's her opening up about her mental health and how difficult she found it in the royal family. Surely you've got to accept that part of her story, that she clearly found it very difficult. And, she was talking about she's on the verge of suicide. I didn't want to be alive anymore. Surely we look at that part of the interview and feel sympathy for her.
Well, on the mental health issue, she said she went to HR at Buckingham Palace and they did nothing. Anybody with a semblance of intelligence knows that HR is there for the employees, not for the royal family. At the end of the day, Harry had a lot of contacts in the mental health family, and if he wanted to help her, he could have helped her, and she could have turned to him and say, who do I turn to? On suicide, well, not for us to talk about, not for us to say, Perhaps she did, perhaps she didn't. We've got to skate over that one.
So should we also acknowledge the echoes of Princess Diana? Princess Diana said similar things. Princess Diana had the raccoon eyes during her interview with Panorama. There are certain similarities to Princess Diana's story and the display we see from Meghan Markle in the Oprah Winfrey interview, and I'm not trying to discredit her feelings, but I see similarities to the point that and Meghan even brings up the Diana interview in her Oprah interview, so I wonder if any of that was intentional.
What about the Wallis Simpson dress? I loved seeing those pictures at the time. They're saying it's a very similar dress to what Wallis Simpson wore. I mean, do you think that was accidental or deliberate?
Even the hair.
Even the hair.
Was it accidental? I think that everything is pretty orchestrated calculated when it comes to Meghan Markle. I think that she, wants to establish herself in this royal space despite feeling rejected by this family, and these are small little ways that she does that.
Hang on a minute, being rejected by the family. Other way around, she's rejected the family.
I completely agree with you, but the narrative she's telling us here is that they rejected her.
No, they welcomed her with open arms.
She quit her job. She quit her job.
The British media, of which Matt is a major part of, welcomed her. They bent over backwards to give her positive publicity, and she kicked them in the teeth.
Yeah, she said, goodbye, I don't want to work here, I don't want to live here anymore. Fine. It wasn't just about Meghan, remember? Harry did pop up in the second half of the show and looked a bit awkward at times. I just want to touch on what Harry also said. You know, it wasn't just the Meghan and Oprah show. He described his brother and father as being trapped within the system. You know, he was talking about how he's felt let down by their kind of lack of emotional response to his disappearance. How damaging do you think his accusations were about this lack of emotion in the royal family and how his brother and his father were trapped and he had found his freedom? How damaging do you think that is for?
I think the great British public saw through the Oprah interview and saw through him. As far as they're concerned, Charles was doing a job, William was doing a job, and Harry chose not to do the job. He did a very good job in the army. He was a good soldier, but he opted out after 10 years. Biggest mistake he ever made was to opt out. But Harry had always made very clear, even in the early days of his service, that he wanted to go to the sharp end. And there was a time when the military didn't want to send him to the sharp end, like Afghanistan or Iraq. And his grandmother intervened in much the same way she intervened when Andrew went to the Falklands. The Navy didn't want to take him. Queen said, he is a serving officer in the Navy, he goes. Likewise, Harry went to Afghanistan.
What do you think of Harry's involvement, his appearance, his cameo appearance in the Oprah interview?
Well, to say that his father and his brother are, basically trapped, they're prisoners, I don't see inmates leave whatever jail they're in and say, I'm inmate number 55776. They say, hi, I'm Mike. The fact that he still wants to be the Duchess or the Duke of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. This was not a prison type experience. If you are waving that flag, as aggressively as they are. We just saw Meghan promoting her new $64 candles on Instagram, and with one of the posts on Instagram, you see her crest, and it's on a journal. She reminds us consistently that she was a member of the British royal family, and you don't do it if it was a traumatic, horrible experience.
Friend said, Meghan Markle. She said, I'm not Meghan Markle. I'm the Duchess of Sussex.
Yeah. Meghan's Sussex now.
Meghan.
Now, the royal family, they were given a right of reply, or they did provide a right of reply. It came late. From memory, it was screened on Oprah in American time. Then there was no response from Buckingham Palace. And then it was screened on ITV in the UK. And it wasn't until the following day that we had, and I'm going to read the statement. I want to get your reaction to, if you remember what the Queen said in response. So she said, the whole family is saddened to learn the full extent of how challenging the last few years have been for Harry and Meghan. The issues raised, particularly that of race, are concerning. Whilst some recollections may vary, they are taken very seriously and will be addressed by the family privately. Harry, Meghan and Archie, it was before Lilibet was born obviously, Harry, Meghan and Archie will always be much loved family members. What do we think of that palace response?
Much loved family members is very sweet. I forgot about that because what stays with us obviously is recollections may vary. And according to Valentine Lowe in his updated book Courtiers, it was Catherine, the Princess of Wales, that was really adamant that they leave that line in as these discussions and strategies were happening behind the scenes. And so I love the line even more, knowing that Catherine might have put her stamp of approval on the Queen's statement.
I think they were absolutely right. Recollections do vary. From what they said in that Oprah interview and what is actually fact and what has come out since, that they're much loved members of the family. Well, they probably were at the time. I'm not terribly sure now.
Dickie!
Well, I thought it was interesting that it felt like those two in that interview were settling old scores. Then the royal family gave that statement out, which was kind of conciliatory, but also saying, we don't believe all your story. They weren't trying to, attack them or hit back or to answer every single score they attacked.
It was very well crafted.
We are constantly debating who the real Meghan Markle is. Is she with Love Meghan? Is she the girl sitting down at the Fortune most powerful women girl? She's a chameleon. She changes based on her environment. I think this is the real Meghan Markle. I think that's the most authentic we've ever seen the woman, is sitting down with Oprah Winfrey and airing her grievances.
Excellent. All right, well, thanks, guys. It's been brilliant to have you both on to discuss a infamous moment in royal family history. Right, that's all we have time for on Royal Exclusive Rewind. But join me next time for some royal nostalgia when we open the files and relive another iconic moment.